In the last lesson, you learned how to style websites using CSS, but now there's a big question. How does CSS knows which elements to style? And that's exactly what we learn today. Welcome back. If you have been practicing consistently, your skills are already improving. And today, your CSS knowledge will become more powerful. Now, what is CSS selector? You see, a CSS selector is what CSS uses to target HTML element you want to style. If you remember in our last class, I told you that the CSS consists of the selector here and the declaration block here. Now, this selector is what I'm talking about. It's what CSS uses to target what the HTML we want to style. There are different type of CSS selector that we have. There are different type of CSS selector that we have. Now you can see here that we're just using the element selector, selecting the entire element. Why? Which is why I wanted us to go deeper into this, because for now when we select HTML, we'll select the H1 element, or every element that we are going to name H1 in our code, this exact style is going to be applied to it. So that's why we're going deeper into these CSS selectors. This is the first selector type here, element selector. I've explained this already. We have already done an example of this element selector. We're just going to move into the next type of selector we can do. Now let's learn one of the most important selectors in all of CSS. Now I'm just going to give this here, and I'm going to give it a class. You can see I give it a class, and I'm going to name it. Let me call it title. You can see title. Let me just make it look like a title. Let's say welcome to Vincent's website. You can see very simple like this. H1 welcome to Vincent's website, and I give it a class name title. Now in here too, let me remove this second H1. In here too, I want to give it a class, and let me call this text. Let me just say I am learning CSS. Let me just change it to something. Learning CSS is fun. Now let me show you how this class selector work. Instead of what you have been doing here, selecting the elements, how class selector works here. Let's start by removing all these element selector. How class selector works here is we are just going to put dots title, then I will say color. Don't worry, I will explain this more to you. I'll say color blue. You can see our title have been changed to blue. I also say dot text. If you remember, we also have another one called text dot text. Then I'll say color green. If you look at this here, our title is welcome to Vincent's website. Our text has been changed to green. Now let's go deeper into the explanation. You see, classes start with a dot. Now when you are trying to start a class, or when you are targeting a class, you must start it with a dot. If I hover over this, you can see now that it's saying element class title. When you start it with a dot, this dot here means a class. What the dot is doing here, when you use dot title, it goes to class attribute here and look for the one that is named title. That's why you see what we did here. We say dot title dot text. This dot means you should go to class attribute and look for this name. That's just why we are using dots here when using this class selector. Don't forget, dot means class. Dot means class. So anytime you have named something called class and you want to style it, you also always say dot, the name of the class. This dot here means class. Now you can see what we have done here. The classes that we declare here allow us to style a specific element. You can see they allow us to style a specific element. If I did this, the same thing I did in my previous, let me just remove this. Let me remove this class. You can see now that the H1 element doesn't have any style here. Only what is having style is this class, the one I named title. So that's just what I wanted to show you again. The class here helps us to style a specific element. Now, another thing I want to show you is that we can create a class and use it multiple times. Let's do something here. Let me create another h1 element here, and let me call it let me just call it heading. I don't want to use this to show example. Let me just say heading 1. Let me just say heading 1. Let me create another paragraph here. And let me just say paragraph. Let me just say paragraph 1. So now what I want to show is that we can use our class multiple times. For an example, I'm going to declare a class here. I'll say dot blue text. Now I'm going to say color, just exactly what I'm doing here, but I'm going to say color blue. Now what I'm trying to do here is anywhere I call this blue text, this style over here will be applied to it. For example, here now I can just go in here and I say class name. Maybe I want this heading 1 to have a blue text. I'll just put it here. You see, the one will now have a blue text. Maybe the same thing I want here to have a blue text. I'll just put it here to have a blue text. You see, this is also what I want to explain to you. For example, let me show you another example so that you understand why I'm explaining this to you. Let me say I declare another one called big. Should I say big text? Yes, let me call it big text. So let me say now let me give it a font size. Let me give it a font size of extra large. Let me do something on extra large. Let me create another one called small text. Let me give it a text size, a font size I mean. Let me give it a font size of extra small. The extra small. Now this is what I just want trying to explain to you here. For example, now this first heading 1 here, maybe I want it to have a bigger text. I'm just going to come here. I created a class called big text. You can see what happened here. I created a class called big text, but let me even make this more bigger. Let me not use this. Let me just create that. Should I say 50 pixels? It doesn't sound like 50 pixels. So you can see now this is big, and here in the small text, let me just do something like 1 pixels. So you can see now that anywhere I use big text, what I'm trying to apply here is to make the to 50 pixels. And let me say here now I use the small text. You can see now that I reduce it to 1 pixel. You cannot see it, but because 1 pixel is very small, let me change it to 10. You can see now that I change it to 10 pixels. That's just what I want to explain to you. This is one of the sweetest things about using class. You can see here now I have the blue text to make the text blue. I use it up here. I also use it down here. I also have big text here. I also give it a double class here. Also call it big text to make the text bigger. Here now I use the one called small text to make the text smaller. That's just what I want to tell you, show you about class. We can use one class multiple times. We can declare class like that we know that we'll be using so many times, so much. Like we can declare one tag and one class that we know that okay, this particular style we are going to be needing it. So like we are going to be needing it a lot in our app. We can just declare this style once and we'll keep calling it in our application. For example, button, maybe you design one button and you want all the remaining buttons that is going to be application to be the same. This kind of thing we do. We'll give it a class name, we'll put all the styles in there, and anywhere we want that button to appear to look alike, we're just going to call it as a class. And when we go deeper into this, we are going to see us doing things like that. I'm going to see how it's being done. It helps developers write reusable CSS, which is very good. You are going to become you are already a developer, and you are going to find easy way to achieve things. You don't want to keep rewriting things so many times. You just have to write it once and create it as reusable so that you keep using it in your application. So when we go deeper into our course, when we go into the practical section, we are going to do things like that. Now, I want to show you another type of selector. I want to show you another type of selector, which is called the ID selector. Now, let me close this up. Let me leave this one as the, let me just leave this H1 there, this heading 1 here as the H1, as the class selector. Now, I want to show you another selector called the ID selector. Now, if you look at the ID selector, all what I will just do here is just to say ID, then I'll give it a name, right? Then I give it a name. Let me give it a name called main title. Now, remember, let me see the one I'm not using, blue text, big text. Let me remove all this. So now, in this ID selector, don't remember what I call it is main title, right? Main title. That's what I call it. So I'll just say main title. I'll give it a style, maybe just a color. So you can see now, this is how the ID selector works. So what this ID selector is doing is using this ID attributes of an HTML element. This ID attribute here is an HTML element attribute here. So it's using this ID attribute to select the element and style that element. And one thing you should know is that every element must have a unique ID. Unlike the classes where I can create multiple classes with the same name, or I can just pass the same name to different elements and I'll use those types. You see, in ID now, the name have to be unique. Every element have to be unique. I know we all know about ID identification, and we all know that in identification in our application have to be unique. That's just the same thing that applies to this ID attribute here. ID have to be unique. So you can see the way we target the ID, we use this hash symbol here, we write the hash character here, followed by the ID title here. That's also how to target the element, the ID element, and style it. We use this hash symbol here. This hash symbol here represents ID, stands for ID. Anywhere you want to call in an ID or anywhere you want to style an ID, what you always do is hash and the ID title. So don't forget that the dot here is class, the hash here is ID. So you have seen what we have done so far. You have understand that classes are reusable, but ID are usually unique. Our ID must be unique. Now, one thing I want to say is that our ID cannot start with a number. You see, in HTML, our ID cannot start with a number. For example, I want to say 1, 2. I want to come here and do 1, 2. You can see now that it's not styling. The style is not applying. I don't want you to hear the name ID and you think that you can just use number instead of name. No, you can see now that it's not working. Our ID cannot be number or cannot even start with a number. You cannot even do something like this. Say you want to name it a number together and a text. You can't even do something like that. So you see, our ID cannot be a number, cannot have a number, cannot start with a number. That's just another thing you should take note of. So another thing I want to show you, we can style multiple elements together. For example, you can see here we have an ID and we have a class here. So we can do something like this, comma, we add an ID to it, main, title. So you can see what is happening here is that we are having if you look at this now, both our class in here and our ID here was going to have the same color. That's just something you should take note of. I can also just click this and let me try to change this color. You can see now that we can also do things like this to change this color to anything we want. We use this a lot when you are trying to build a website. You don't have a specific color, you're trying to be creative. So you do things like this a lot. Let's just go back to this. Let me use something called should I say gray? Let me use gray here. This is just what I want to show you. You can target multiple elements at the same time. You can see the first one here. I'm targeting a class. I just put comma and say and target the main title. Any style I add here, any style I declare here will be added to these two elements. That's something again you should know. Now I want to show you another one again because I believe I will be using it anytime in our practical. Now the star here means all. So if I do something like this, star, and I say text, let me say text align, center, and I also add color blue. Let me just say color blue. You see, I've changed that one to gray, but this one now I say color blue. And let me say, let me remove this gray let me just remove these styles that I'm doing here. Let me remove this one also. Now, what I'm doing here is this star here is a universal selector. It selects all the elements in the page. That's just what this star means here. It's a universal selector. It just means all. It just means all. It selects all the elements in this page. Everything in your page, everything in your website. When you use star here, it selects everything in your website. So there are cases where you will need to select everything and apply some specific styles to it. You use this star here to select all the elements in your page and apply some specific style to it. You can see what we have applied here is text, align text to be center. Our text is in center and the color is blue. That's another important thing you should take note of. Now, before we go into our next class, let's do a little project here. Should I call it a project, or let's just do a little practical in here? Now, I want us to create, let me just go in so you can follow me. Let me just continue with it. You can follow me. Let me remove this. Let me empty this body totally. So now we're going to start with an H1. This H1, I'm going to give it an ID. The ID is going to be main heading. Now my main heading is going to be Vincent's website. Okay, let me remove this universal styling that I'm doing here, so you'll be seeing it clearly. So Vincent's website. I'm going to have another paragraph. I'm going to have a paragraph here. This paragraph here, I'm going to give it a class. The class is going to be let me call it intro. Now in this intro, I'm going to say CSS. CSS is becoming easier to understand. So what else? Let me have an H2. Let me just make this a little bit more. Let me add an H2. This H2 now is going to also have a class. I'm going to call this class section title, and the section title is going to be my goal, just something like this. And I want to list my goal too. We also do an unordered list. I believe we all still remember this. On that list, then we have some list items. The first one I'm going to write here is learn HTML. Feel free to write your own goals there. Learn HTML. Let me just reuse this. Now I've not been teaching you how I've been doing that. I think I've pop up the code in one of my videos. You see, if I'm here and I want to have another line using the same thing, I can just do a copy. I can copy exactly this line to the next line by just clicking Shift and Alt. I'll hold Shift and Alt, then I'll click the down arrow to just bring the same line to me. You just copy that the same line and bring it to the next arrow to duplicate that line for me and bring it to the next line. So that's just what I've been doing for long now. So let me just show you. So I can also say learn CSS. I will do the same thing. Shift Alt down. Then I'll say build project. So I'll say build projects. So now you can see we have done some things here. Now let's move into the styling. Let's style this a little bit. Now the first one I have here, don't forget, you must use the exact name. If you don't want to have error, you must be using the exact name you called in. So the first one I have here is an ID. So if you remember, this is how we select an ID. The ID is called a main heading. So I'll say my main heading, and I want to give it the color blue. I give it another style here. Text align should be center. You can see it moves to center. The next one I have here is my intro. I'll just say dot intro. Hope you haven't forgot to use dot for class. So dot intro, and my intro I'll just give it a color also, color blue. Then I'll also give it the font size, be 18 pixels. You can see. Also, I don't want it to be too big, 18 pixels. I have another one called section. If you name your own differently, you have to go and make sure you are using the exact name to call it. I have another called section title. I just want to change only the color. The color should be green. So something as simple as that. If you look at what I've done here, I just created this simple website here, and I just said Vincent's website says this is becoming easier to understand. My goal, then I list my goal down here. You can see now that your status is becoming more structured, and this is how professional styling begins. Now, if you look at this, I have a challenge here for you, and if you look at this challenge, let me just explain what we are going to be doing here. Let me make this bigger so that you see it more clearly. You can look at this. This is a challenge that should I say test? Sorry, this should be test. This is a challenge that tests your understanding of CSS by completing a small code challenge. See, test your understanding of CSS by completing a small code challenge. Complete the following steps. Now, this is what I just want you to do. The first step is use an element selector to set all paragraph element color to dim gray. Use a class selector to set highlights. I'll just give you how you will name it here. Dot highlight background color to be yellow. Use an ID selector to set intro font size to be 20 pixels. So that's your challenge here. That's what you are going to be doing here. And in our next class, I'm going to start by giving you the solution to this challenge. And we are also going in our same next class, we're going to look at a different way we can write HTML. You can see now what I've been doing here. I just created a file called styles.css. But in our next class also, I'm also going to show you different way we can write CSS, different way we can add CSS to our website. And I will see you in that one.